We all have an idea of what makes an NBA MVP in our minds. You hear those letters, you probably picture a cool, exciting, charismatic, longtime superstar. A guy who's won titles before or is on the verge of winning one, and who you see on national TV every other night. You know, LeBron James, Steph Curry, maybe even Kevin Durant if you forget the charismatic part. Your first thought probably is not a 6'11", 284-pound Serbian fella who can barely get off the ground and plays for the 6th-seeded Denver Nuggets, even if that man is the literal reigning MVP. Last year, a lot of people did everything they could to write off Jokic's MVP season. They said he didn't win enough games or he played no defense, that he only won because everybody else got hurt. But if you watch what he did night to night, you knew how remarkable he was. I believe Jokic had the greatest offensive season of any big man ever, and he ended the year with 90% of the first place MVP votes for a reason. But here's the thing. This year, he's been even better. Pretty much everything has gone wrong around Jokic over the last 8 months. Jamal Murray tore his ACL in April and still hasn't returned. Michael Porter Jr. averaged under 10 points per game in the 9 games he played this season before his year was ended by back surgery. Jokic has nobody even approaching star level alongside him, and the Nuggets bench just sucks. But still, they play at an elite level when he's on the floor, and he's producing at a historic level individually. And yes, to me, he's the MVP right now. So come on, let me make the case for you. Now, obviously, there are multiple elements to a strong MVP case, but let's first look at individual production and efficiency. This season, Jokic is averaging 25.3 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 7.4 assists per game on 64% true shooting. Just remarkable. Unsurprisingly, he's the only player in basketball to rank top 10 in points, rebounds, and assists per game, all while being the most efficient 20-point per game scorer in the league by true shooting percentage. Nobody has ever averaged 25, 13, and 7 in a season, and only one other player has ever averaged 25 points and 7 assists per game on 64% true shooting. LeBron James once. And for what it's worth, Jokic also did it last season. If you're a big believer in single number metrics, which I am not for the record, Jokic's advantage is overwhelming. He doesn't just lead the league in box plus minus and value over replacement player, he leads by a lot. And really, take your pick. Win shares, player impact estimate, Raptor, Jokic leads them all. And again, I don't think you can encompass the complexity of a player's value with one number, but that does tell you that nobody has stuffed the stat sheet or done so as efficiently as Jokic, even as players like KD, Giannis, and LeBron have had remarkable individual statistical seasons. So okay, Jokic is winning here, and I think a lot of people would even admit that. But of course, that's just one component of what makes an MVP. As we all know, team value and team success are essential to an MVP case. And I think that's where a lot of people begin to disregard Jokic as a top candidate. But I believe he has the strongest resume here too. To get a sense of this, let's just look at Sunday's game when the Nuggets played the Jazz. Jokic played 37 minutes, had 25, 15, and 14 on 10 of 18 shooting, and Denver actually outscored Utah by 5 points when he was on the floor. But in the 11 minutes he was not out there, the Nuggets got outscored by 28 points. By literally no fault of Jokic's at all, in less than a quarter of the game, his teammates made that contest unwinnable. And if some of you guys are like, why are you praising him for a loss? Grow up, I'm literally just citing the last game he played. The truth is, no team is even close to as singularly dependent on one player as the Nuggets are on Jokic. Every other major MVP candidate, which to me would be KD, Steph, and Giannis, has at least one clear, star-level player on their team and much more legitimate depth. Jokic's second leading scorer this season is Will Barton, and his team's depth has been decimated by injuries. Leads his team in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals per game, and is dangerously close to doubling his next closest teammate in each of the first 3 categories. He's essential to basically every single possession when he's on the floor, which is why he comfortably leads the league in touches as he kills defenses from everywhere in a multitude of roles. He's the best all-around post player in the league, a 78th percentile scorer there with a sensational arsenal of hooks and turnarounds, which he converts with unreal efficiency, who also finds cutters and shooters better than anybody else in basketball from there. He's invaluable as a screener, creating space for ball handlers with his massive frame, and he excels both as a popper or as a roller, where his touch is unrivaled. He dissects defenses from the top of the key often, and sometimes he just brings the ball up the floor himself, especially in transition where his passing is absurd. He's been great as a cutter. He's one of the best putback scorers in the NBA. Basically, nobody can guard this dude. He can score from anywhere, and he amplifies the talent around him as much as anybody on the planet with his otherworldly playmaking. And by the way, although his offense is what makes him special, Jokic has played unquestionably the best defense of his life this season. He's consistently been committed on that end and demonstrated impressive defensive playmaking, has held opposing players more than 2% below their average field goal percentage when he's the primary defender, and has transformed the Nuggets' team defense when he's on the floor, as they're 11.5 points per 100 possessions better with him out there on that end, a 98th percentile mark. That right there is legitimate positive value. So again, no team needs their leading man more. The difference between the Nuggets with and without Jokic this season is genuinely mind-boggling. To begin with, when he plays, the Nuggets are 21-16, and when he's out, they're 1-4. With Jokic on the floor, the Nuggets have outscored opposing teams by 9.3 points per 100 possessions. Without him, they are outscored by 11.7 points per 100. Let's just let that sink in for a second here. That means that when Jokic plays, the Nuggets are equivalent to the best team in the league. The Denver Nuggets, with a starting five of Jokic, Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, Monte Morris, and Jeff Green, and a bad bench. And when he sits, they're equivalent to the worst team in the league. According to Cleaning the Glass, the Nuggets go from playing as an 11-win team without Jokic to a 63-win team with him. And this, to me, is really the crux of Jokic's argument. Winning is essential to a strong MVP case. We went almost 30 years between Michael Jordan in 1988 and Russell Westbrook in 2017 without having a single winner who didn't finish as a top 2 seed, and I very much respect that precedent. MVPs do not go to players who raise their teams from simply being bad to above average. Whether it was Kobe in 2006 or Westbrook in 2017, I don't think anybody in that category should win the award because that's not what it's about. But what if you take what is the worst team in the league without you, make them the best team in the league with you, and have the most impressive statistical profile individually of anybody on the planet? What happens then? As you can see, when Jokic plays, the Nuggets are surprisingly close to what the Warriors are with Steph or the Bucks are with Giannis. They're also significantly better than the Nets with KD, and less surprisingly, on a different planet than the Lakers with LeBron. But okay, how about compared to past MVPs? Well, since play-by-play tracking data began in 1996, if Jokic were the MVP, he would have the 16th best on-court differential out of 26 winners. Pretty darn close to average among all-time players who have overwhelmingly won at an elite level, and better than MVP seasons from Jordan, Duncan, Kobe, D. Rose, and KD, among others. And if you're looking at on-off differential among MVPs, Jokic is unsurprisingly among the best of the best, ranking 4th in that category. So yes, when Jokic is on the floor, the Nuggets perform pretty much as an average MVP winner's team has historically. And for those of you scrambling to explain why those numbers don't tell the whole story, no, it's not like the Nuggets are falling apart in winning time. Jokic is the number 8 clutch scorer in basketball, and the Nuggets have a winning record in games that come down to clutch situations. So, let me ask you this. When it comes down to it, are we going to hold what happens when Jokic is not on the floor against him? Is that going to be the deciding factor? People can say the Nuggets won't win enough games for Jokic to be MVP, but the truth is that we have no historical precedent for this. Nobody has ever produced at this level, made their team this good when they're on the court, and yet not had the win-loss record reflect their brilliance because of the disaster that is every second they're not out there. Like here. Before KD got hurt, a lot of people would probably say he deserves the edge over Jokic because his raw production and efficiency are similar and his team has the better record, right? But again, the Nuggets have been a good bit better when Jokic is actually on the floor than the Nets have been with KD. So, when we boil this down, are we saying that it is more important to a player's resume what happens when they are off the court, things they have nothing to do with, than what happens when they are on it? Because to me, that's what we'd be saying with that logic, and that is obviously ridiculous. We have better information than just straight up win-loss records to account for a player's impact on winning and the level their team plays at when they are actually on the court, and we should use that information. So that's why I think Jokic breaks the historical win-loss precedent, and there's your case for him over KD, but there are other great candidates this year too. If you're leaning Steph, I get it. The team's success has been overwhelming, and it's so obvious how monumentally important his gravity is to the success of the Warriors' offense. But I would argue that at this point in the season, his individual execution isn't quite at the level it needs to be for him to be MVP. His raw production doesn't compare to Jokic's, his true shooting percentage is 5 points lower, and he's currently posting easily his lowest 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, and true shooting percentage since before he was an All-Star. Plus, as unbelievably important as he is to the Warriors' offense, they're primarily an elite team right now because they have the best defense in the league, where Steph is also playing the best of his career, but he's only a small part of that equation. Now, if he plays at the level he did last year down the stretch, I think he'll have all the components of a great MVP case and will be pretty much impossible to deny, but he's not there yet. Then we have Giannis, who's great. He eats up box scores efficiently and has the highest defensive impact of any leading candidate, but I don't think his burden compares to the other major candidates, and given Milwaukee's talent, I'd expect them to be a bit better than they have been up to this point, which is the 5 seed. Like, when his team is barely better than Jokic's when each of them play, and Jokic is the better production and efficiency, given the massive talent gap between these two rosters, I think I know who I'm leaning toward. At the end of the day, though, I think all these guys have their cases, but I do believe Jokic's is the strongest. This dude is historically, monumentally great. And to me, as I've been saying for a year, he's the best player on the planet. Nobody else handles that kind of burden with the brilliant consistency he does, all while getting such little recognition in the scheme of things. And I'm not one to deny him his credit. So hop on the train, ladies and gentlemen, because right now, I think Big Honey is your NBA MVP. Let me know if you're with me. To those of you who have made it this far, as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, the good news is we have plenty more content like this. My friend Logan and I do 3 podcasts a week on both the NBA and the NFL and both of their respective histories. You can see that we live stream those on our YouTube channel. Normally Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday this week because of the NFL playoffs, but check all that out. You can follow us on social media at nerd_sesh on Twitter, at Nerd Sesh on both Instagram and TikTok. And of course, you can expect more content like this, video essays, video breakdowns, which we do overwhelmingly on the NBA. So stay tuned in for all of that. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed.